guys, welcome to Hank's True Barbecue. Today we're gonna prep a new cut. Well, actually, I've done it a few times before, but most people don't do it in the barbecue, and this is called a ball tip. Ball tip is also known as the beef rump. This is located, like if you follow the cow from front to back, along the lower, well, the loin actually, to where the loin meets the thigh and the rump actually, that's where it's located, so high up. As you can see, it's quite, well, almost symmetrical, very, very low in fat. So that basically tells us how we should cook it. Typically with barbecue you have these cuts from the front half of the animal, which is, it contains a lot of fat, connective tissue, etc. that you need to break down. This one doesn't, so it means that basically we're going to get it up to proper temp and then let it rest and then it's done. So we don't need to smoke this one way past its ready temp like you do with brisket, for example, or pork butts. The nice thing about this one is flavor, of course. This is real good beef flavor. It's very tender, as long as we don't cook it to a too high an internal temperature. So that's what we're just going to smoke it today. Since this is a barbecue channel, of course, I'm going to use my big green egg for this one. We're going to apply dry brine first, and we do that to amplify flavor, of course. This is roughly 1 kilo, which is almost 2.5 pounds. That means we're going to use, my measurements is like 1 teaspoon salt per kilo of meat. So it's quite easy when you use metrics. That's what we're going to do. I use table salt, not kosher salt. So if you're really wary about salt levels, just take it down a notch and you should be fine. But 1 teaspoon per kilo, that's what we're going to do. And today, instead of leaving it like dry brining overnight, I'm actually going to apply the rub at the same time. So we're going to get both of those in there to work the magic, and then tomorrow morning we'll get the fire started and start smoking this one. So let's get started with prep. So we're dry brining for flavor, and dry brining is the same as wet brining, only it's easier because you apply the salt directly to the meat. Now some of you may say that that's going to draw out moisture and juices from the meat, and yes, that's correct, at least initially. But then when moisture hits the surface here, it mixes with the salt, dissolves the salt, and the salt goes back into the meat. So it's all good. I've done quite a few experiments testing this, and you can see for yourself, if you leave the meat out for an hour or a little longer, you'll see what happens. Now again, I'm using 1 teaspoon of salt, and then I'm going to apply the rub. In this case, I'm using my own beef rub, Hank's Bonafide beef rub. It's available on Amazon. I think it's really good because it balances the meat flavor, it doesn't overtake it, and there's very little salt in this one. That's why I'm using a dry brine first. This contains black pepper, of course, one of my big steak favorites. Also some cumin, some shiitake powder to amplify the umami of the meat even more. So we're going to apply a liberal amount. I like a lot of rub, and it should sit and bake basically in the fridge till tomorrow. So you get all those flavors in the meat, so don't be shy with the rub, just apply liberal amounts. You can, if you want, brush some oil on the meat, but I think the moisture of the meat surface in itself is good enough for this to stick. Some people apply mustard also for the same reason, but I'm just going to go with the rub in this case. That's what I usually do. It's quick and easy and simple, so just a little bit more and then I'm happy. So there we have a nice ball tip. Now I'm going to leave this in the fridge overnight to get all those flavors in there. Again, this is a rub, but you don't rub it in, you just pat it in. The reason for that is basically it's not an issue if you're using a regular grill, but if you're using an offset smoker, you want to make sure the surface area is relatively smooth, otherwise it's going to dry out the surface too quickly. That's the reason you don't rub the meat. I have an offset smoker, but I have a few other cookers also, so I'm always doing the same thing, basically just patting it in. So we're all good. Let's wait till tomorrow, and then we're going to fire up my big green egg. Alright, so I just lit the charcoal. I'm waiting for that to get a little bit hotter, get it up to temp. So the plan is to run this at 130 degrees Celsius, which is 265 Fahrenheit. We're gonna do a low and slow on this one because I want to have enough time to get all the smoke in. I'm gonna use cherry wood, which is one of my favorites. Oak is fine, apple is fine, pecan is fine, use whatever you have. I think this chunk is good because I estimate that this cook is gonna take roughly 1 hour. So this should be more than enough smoke to get into the ball tip. So once this one gets up to temp, I'm gonna start adjusting the top vent to get it tuned in to exactly where I want it, and then we're gonna put the meat on and put a good chunk of wood in to get that true barbecue flavor. So stay with me. All right, we're up to temp, so I'm gonna drop this little chunk in. Just need to lift the deflector plate. That's why it's really good with some welding gloves. Should be generating smoke pretty quickly. There we go. Let's get this beauty on the grill grates. Close it again, and then we're gonna wait a while. Again, I think it should take 1 hour, but let's see where we end up. And I'm running now at 130 degrees Celsius, that is, which is 265 Fahrenheit. So again, I wanted to get a good enough smoke flavor in there since we're gonna do a low and slow only. There's no searing involved because I wanna leave the surface as it is, where the rub is working its magic. See that smoke coming out? The aroma here is just fantastic. I think it's time for a temp check. 44, so another 10 to go. The internal temp is now 55 or 130 degrees Fahrenheit. As you can see, it's looking really good. So basically, if any of you wonder, I'm making a roast beef out of this one. So now we're prepped it here, so I'm gonna put this one on dual layers of foil and wrap it real good with a thick towel. That's what we call a faux cambro, because the rest period is just as important as the cook, so don't forget about that. So now I'm just gonna fold this one real nice and easy. This one's easy because there are no bones in it, so bones usually poke a hole through the aluminum foil. That's the first one. You want to seal it up real good. And the second one. Now I'm going to take a really thick bath towel and fold it twice and then wrap this one up so it's going to hold temp, because this one needs to rest for a good hour before we slice it in thin slices. So our little steak has been resting here, a nice little gift wrap package. So it's time to take off the towel and then remove the aluminum foil, and we're going to slice it thinly and give it a good taste, see what we think about it. So check it out. Still very warm. This faux cambro holds heat very, very well, which is supposed to anyway, so it's really good. Everything is looking fine. I've had it resting for a little over an hour, which is good. We want this to cool down a bit. Still smells delicious. You can smell the smoke aroma from the meat. Yep, that's looking good. Gonna get a pair of tongs to bring it out. It's looking really good. Now, since we only cooked it for like an hour and a half, it's not gonna get that bark like you get with pork butts or briskets, but that wasn't the point either, so just gonna slice this one up real nice, see what it looks like. Should be relatively red in the middle. So yeah, this is nice. So I'm gonna use this like a roast beef, so to make a roast beef sandwich basically. I think it's fair to say that mission has been accomplished. This looks really, really good, as you can see. Really moist and tender. Oh, just the right flavor. That rub together with the cherry wood smoke. Fantastic. Now we need smell-o-vision for you guys to check this out. Just right. Now that was an easy cook, wasn't it? So what we've done today is a smoked, well, I call it a roast beef. This is a ball tip or beef rump, smoked with cherry wood, rubbed with Hank's Bonafide beef rub. Flavor is fantastic, really succulent and juicy, just the way it should be. dead easy cook. All we did was low and slow smoke it for an hour and a half, so that's good. Also, I want to give a shout out to James from Cooking with James. He doesn't know it yet, but he actually has inspired me to do a few videos in English, so we'll see what the responses are. But give this a try at home. It's really good, fantastic flavor, and thanks for stopping by.